Hold on, gotta plug in the lights. And we're open for business. Yo, so you know that I usually want to keep my channel in the light and be positive, but I was just telling this story the other day and I was like, there's no way that I can't tell this story on my YouTube because it's such a good cautionary tale for producers and artists. So today, I'm gonna tell the story of the freaking worst band I've ever recorded, the most difficult band I've ever worked with. And there's been a lot, but this is hands down the worst one. Most of my bands are great. Let me just say that too. Again, my channel stays in the light, but today, Evil Pete is coming out. While I do this, I'm gonna change my guitar strings because I need to. Oh, and I'm wearing the wrong glasses. I need my anti-glare glasses on. These are acoustics. No, I need electric. I'm going with 9s because that's all I got. All right, so there I was. I'd say probably 20 years old. For reference, I'm 31 now, so this is a good 10 years ago where I was recording in my parents' basement before I worked at another studio and before I had any sort of credits or any sort of leverage. Keep in mind, I'm probably recording bands for, I don't know, maybe $250 a song. If I'm lucky, maybe $250 is my first asking price. And then after that is like, sure, I'll do it for $100 and burritos for the day. Where's all my string changing stuff, dude? All I do is lose stuff over and over again. Oh, if you ever wondered what was in this locker, whole lot of junk. Let's try my very best not to spill it on anything because I spill my drinks during all my videos. So there I was, happy to make my $100 plus Chipotle burritos for the day. Band walks in, the demo sounds pretty sick. I'm like, all right, we're gonna crush it. Blue. Dude, they changed the colors of the strings. No one said I was a guitar tech. And of course, I'm not gonna say the band name or who this was, but the kicker at the end is crazy. But I'm not gonna say the band name. I'm not an evil person. I just got tortured for the day. So first we start with the scratch guitar. I throw on my amps in. And the band's like, oh yeah, we just want to use our own amp at some point. And I'm like, yeah, of course, I'm totally down. As long as it sounds sick, let's run it. We get the scratch guitar in and we crush through that and make a couple changes. And then we go to drums. And the drummer is the deciding factor whether or not the band is going to be good or not. And guess what? The drummer was great. He basically one take the whole song and then we kind of punched in a couple different fills because we're like, why not? He crushed it. We have the time. We might as well go for it. Next up is bass. We smash in the bass pretty quickly. Nothing out of the ordinary. I have to have the bassist redo a couple things here and there. It's not like we were getting hung up on anything or I had to have a conversation of, listen, maybe I should track the bass because I'm in here listening to click every day and I'm just a freak. Bassist was great. We tracked through it and it sounded awesome. So then next, we get to guitar. Very fitting that I'm changing my strings right now. So first of all, his guitar, he never really changed the strings. They were super messed up and rusty and not great. I suggested we use my guitar because it just had fresher strings on it. He was like, no, I have to use this guitar. It's my dad's and blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, maybe there's a vibe here. You know, I always try to look for the light in something and like, I don't know, maybe it'll be cool, right? I doubt frickin' Kurt Cobain changes strings every day. I notice he has a box full of guitar fixing tools and different cables and polish and all this stuff. And I'm like, huh. Little weird he didn't change his guitar strings when he has all this stuff. And then we end up using like a vintage amp, like a Supro or something, not traditionally a high gain amp, but keep in mind, we're doing like heavy rock, pop punk style stuff. I'm curious how this is gonna go. I'm totally down to mic it up and figure out how this thing sounds. So I mic it up, you know, I throw a 57 right in the center of the cab just because I feel like that's going to give me the most clarity and the best chance to be the accurate representation of what that amp is from the live room to the control room, which was literally just on the other side of the wall. So I'm like, all right, you want to go ahead, set up your settings, and then I'll mic it up and we'll set up the pre. He's like, yeah, sounds good. So I set up the mic and he cranks everything on the amp 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, as loud as it goes. I've played in punk bands my whole life. I like loud music. Okay, don't get me wrong, but everything at 10 just seems like you're going to break something. Whether it's our ears, whether it's the amp, whether it's my mic and my preamps, you're gonna blow something up, dude. So anyway, I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. Why don't we just like dial in your, you know, your gain settings and your EQ settings, and then we'll adjust the master volume and we'll figure it out that way. He's like, oh, this is just how I always run it. And at that point, the singer looks at me and he gave me that look like, help. Like, I think I need help. As if this has been an issue live or with sound guys or whatever. So I quickly said to him, I was like, I love you to death. I just want the best project to come out of the studio today. I think we should just start with it lower and we'll figure it out. He's like, okay, sounds good. So I set up the mic, he plays the amp, and to not my surprise, when he plays the guitar, it's not a pop punk tone or a rock tone. It's just, of course, a clean guitar tone coming through like a really clean sounding amp. So he goes, yeah, this is not what I was looking for. That's why I had the volume at 10. And I'm thinking in my head, well, maybe the amp is not as loud as I think. So I'm like, all right, go ahead in there, crank it. Let's see what's up. I click the pad on my mic. He closes the door and he rips it. Dude, I swear to God, the amp was louder than any amp I've ever heard in my whole life, even through the wall. So I quickly was like, hey, stop playing. I think it's too loud. He's like, oh, this is how I always run it live. And the singer looks at me again. This has been an issue, for sure. He's giving me the look like I need to help. Now, I don't know what to do because he is stubborn and wants his amp on 10. So I say, hey, can you just go out there and just play your amp while I mic it up? Trying to give him a taste of his own medicine so he can hear how loud this freaking amp is. And again, I played in punk bands my whole life. I love loud shit, but this was too loud. And the only way he could get distortion out of that amp was by throwing it on 10, basically making it almost explode, rather than, I don't know, maybe getting a distortion pedal if you want to use that freaking amp. So anyway, he goes out there, he plays, and he's like, yeah, it sounds sick to me. And he comes back in and he's screaming because he can't hear anymore. So then I'm like, all right, let me just see what I can do. So what I ended up doing is I plugged the mic in, I threw the pad on, the preamp was still clipping. I turned the gain all the way down, the preamp was still clipping. I said to him, I was like, hey, regardless if we want to use this amp or not, my preamps can't handle how loud this is. And he was like, all right, well, can we just like record it anyway? I was like, it's clipping, dude. Like, it's not going to sound good. And he's like, well, let's just record it. So I record it, blast it, red meters all the way across the board. And I play it back and he's like, yeah, that doesn't sound good. I was like, yeah, man, it does not sound good. It sounds bad. I was like, I think we should try a different amp. And he's like, no, man, like, is there anything else we can do so that the preamps don't clip? And I'm like, you know, me being a nice guy and also down for something a little bit more experimental. I'm like, okay. And also being 20 years old and not having that much of a spine because I was really hungry. I needed to eat and I needed to work and I can't afford to lose a client, you know? So client is always right. What I ended up doing was I took this little mixer that I had and I ran it into the mixer and I had a pad going on it and I turned the volume all the way down and then I turned the master pretty far down and then I was able to go into my preamp normally. And so anyway, I recorded again. It's not clipping, but I play it back and it just sounds weird. It sounds like thin and mid-rangey, like sort of gain, but not really, more just like breakup of an amp. Like it's like almost like too much pick definition when he's playing. So I play it back and he's like, oh, that sounds terrible. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I just think we need to use a different amp. I think we're spending too much time on this. And I think we can find something that's better that we'll both be happy with, even if it's the same type of amp that you have, an Amplitube. And I was like, and if you don't want to use that and you want to use a real amp, I have some other amps here. And he's like, no, man, we have to use my amp. I have to figure it out. So he goes out there and he messes with his settings a little bit. And when he's out there, I'm talking to the singer and he's like, yeah, he's just like really particular about his cables and his amps and his guitars. And I'm like, for what reason? Doesn't he want the song to sound good? But so at this point, he messes with the tones. I recorded it again. He's like, oh, it's still not it. And I was like, listen, man, we're going to have to make a decision. Either we're running this bad tone and getting through the session because, you know, we got to get to vocals, or we got to use a different amp. And he goes, all right, I have one more idea. Just record this pass. So I record the pass and it sounds like crap. He's like, all right, I have one idea. And he goes out there and I don't really know what he does, but he goes out there and he comes back and I record the guitar again and it sounds the same to me. I'm like, dude, this still sounds like the same thing. He's like, oh, that sounds so much better. And I was like, what did you do that made it sound so much better to you? Because to me, it sounds exactly the same. And I wasn't going to do the thing where I'm like, hey, close your eyes. I'm going to play both these versions back and make you guess which one is which. But that's what it was. They were exactly the same tone. You know, so I play them back to back and he's like, oh yeah, see that one sounds so much better. And I was like, so what did you do? So he's like, I went out there and I took my guitar cable and the end that was plugged into my guitar and the end that was plugged into the amp. Dude, I flipped it around. And I was like, that wouldn't make a difference. At least I still don't think it makes a difference. If it makes a difference, I'm eating my words right now. But I heard no audible difference. Does flipping your guitar cable? No. Okay. Google says it does not matter if you flip your guitar cable around. But this kid, this musician, this legend was convinced that flipping his guitar cable around the other way made it sound so much better. At that point, I gave up. I was like, this is an insane person. I'm not even gonna bother arguing with them because I don't feel like getting stabbed in the middle of the night. But so we record, we finish the session, we finish the vocals, everything sounds good. I end up just like turning down the guitars a bunch and doing my best to EQ it so that it felt a little fuller and compressing it so it wasn't as like pick-a-tacky. And then later that day, my manager at the time, who was also my band's manager, calls me and he was like, hey dude, so the artist you had in today, the band you had in today was really not happy with how the session went and they want their money back. And I said, I have no problem burning this bridge. I'm not going to give them their money back because they only paid a deposit and we did a full day of work. Usually what I would do is take 50%. When the song is finished, finish up the other 50%. I am not going to be tortured for free today. So no, I'm not giving you your deposit back, but you can tell them I will send them all the stems and I will send them everything we did today. So if they want to bring it to somebody else and finish it, then they can. He's like, all right, I'll let them know. So they did. The singer ends up texting me. He's like, hey, sorry about today. Sorry it didn't work out. Hoping we can come back another time, whatever. So there's two things after this that happened that are both crazy. So they went out and they recorded with a bunch of other producers in the area and they burnt out every single producer to the point where the singer kicked out the guitarist and he texted me. He's like, hey, we want to come back and finish the song. That guy is not, the guitarist is not in the band anymore. And I was like, yeah, of course you're welcome to come back. So they ended up coming back. We ended up doing a couple different songs and everything was great with that band from then on. But the craziest freaking part of this whole thing is that guitarist is now a full-time producer. He is out there recording bands, not A-Being tones, A-Being cable direction somewhere in the world. But also, again, this was 10 years ago. He could not be doing that. But I have to imagine he had to have burned a bunch of artists on his way up. I've only changed 2 strings. At least a burned producer could hope that he has seen the errors of his ways and has learned a little bit more about producing, not only producing, but also being a good hang in the studio and also leaving his ego at the door when he comes into the studio. So now today when I get bands in and they're like, hey man, I hope I really wasn't too annoying asking for all these changes and all this stuff. I'm like, no, dude, nothing will ever be as annoying as this. And then I tell them the story. Man, all I can say is be nice to your producers. They've gone through a lot. All right, well with that, I appreciate you guys watching. I'm gonna finish changing my guitar strings because I have a session in about 30 minutes. And apparently at this rate, it's gonna take me another hour to change my strings. But I'll see you guys next time.
I flipped it around.